It's just a cliche.
So we do a picture together as a proof that this happened. Finally.
Let's do that.
Yeah. And one quote of my program is Paul Mazukiewicz from Cannibal Corpse was complaining about the horns. I don't like the horns. Back in the day, it was the claw and it was the fist. I always fist. You gotta watch that.
Hello, I'm the drummer of a band called Arch Enemy, and my name is Daniel, and welcome to this interview.
So we both sit here because of a love for music and for rhythm and for drums. So what floats your boat? The physicality of playing, the power of a simple beat, or the mathematical complexity you can create on the buckets right in front of you?
It's a combination of all those things, but the passion and the joy to create music is it's been like a red thread throughout my years of drumming ever since I started. That's still what drives me as a drummer, to be a part of the whole creative process, like writing songs together with the band, going to the studio, record them. And to be honest, I don't really think about things like mathematically complex in terms of our music anyway, because it's fairly straightforward. My drumming kind of exists somewhere in between playing a steady rock beat and playing some more complex things, like mostly in the fills, basically, because our rhythms are fairly straightforward. But every now and then I introduce something a little bit more complex to keep it interesting.
It's the cherries on top, where you can shine.
Yeah, a little bit like that. It's not just to shine, it's just like introduce something that sounds a little different and like gets people attention.
Absolutely, yeah, and to spice it up a little. I mean, if you have to do those beats, you have to do. I mean, sometimes the riff calls for that beat, and if you play way too much, if you overplay it, it doesn't work, and you have to play in favor of the song, of course. Mm-hmm. So I'm there with you that you need to have those little fills to spice it up for yourself and for the audience as well.
Absolutely, and I think that if you take Arch Enemy as a band and where we're coming from, our influences are kind of firmly rooted in like the 70s and 80s. Of rock and metal and the early stuff that was coming out back then. And a lot of that stuff was fairly basic, like Scorpions, for example. It's just one of those bands, but it's a band that we are very influenced by.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this backstage the other day, that it feels kind of unique for us to be able to be successful within the music scene today, because a lot of other stuff is going on and music is starting to sound a bit different, a bit more modern. You know, complex rhythms, complex playing, but we're kind of old school in that sense, that we have kind of straightforward rhythms, especially. Like you don't hear a lot of metal bands just like laying down the 4/4. I think it complements that kind of nicely if I every now and then throw in a little bit off beat to get people's attention, you know.
Now you're the headliner. Last time you weren't when I was here.
Right.
Both times.
Yeah. It's going in the right direction.
Absolutely. So you do something right, definitely. Congrats to that, by the way. Never mentioned it. So yeah, every time I see your band, you're way more up in the billing. So next time it's a bigger place.
Well, it's been like 3 years since I saw you last time.
I guess so, yeah, with Amon Amarth.
Yeah. And before that, it was like 4 years. So it's only, if we would be going the other direction, it would be a reason to discuss that.
Yeah, next time you're in my living room.
Yeah.
brother Adrian, whose birthday is tomorrow, right?
Correct.
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 Yeah, I did
So
my research.
you'll have to edit this interview quickly if you want to get it out for that.
So he was a huge influence for you becoming a professional musician. So how was it for you to grow up with a drummer?
Well, we were 6 years apart. Like he's 6 years my senior. When he started playing, I was just a little kid, and it just really grabbed my attention. Like anything that he was into back then, to be honest, would grab my attention. But especially the drums, just like being very loud and shaking the house that we were living in. He had his drum set up in the basement. For him, it was also very driven by the bands that he was into at the time, and there was like the first Motley Crue was one of the albums that was like inspiring to both of us, especially to him. But we didn't have any double bass, we didn't have any double pedal. But somehow he found a way to like mount 2 single pedals on a single kick with his knees together, and he made it somehow. It made it work somehow.
Absolutely. That's way better than the usual cans and cushions thing.
Yeah.
I mean, Max from Frisian, he told me he had a wooden drum kit. Everything made of wood, probably what they found in Brazil.
Yeah.
Because they're growing up rather poorly, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I love the creativity you put into making you be able to have a drum kit, whatever. Yeah, so...
and it's like the old cliche, like everybody says nowadays, that back then there was no YouTube, there was no internet. But it's really true, we really didn't know how that worked. Just trying to figure it out as we went. But like, as soon as I kind of picked up the sticks and tried out the drums, it just kind of fell naturally into place. I could feel that, pretty soon I could feel that this is something I could probably get pretty good at, as opposed to playing guitar or something like that. It just felt so much more difficult.
Did he teach you how to play drums, or were you just watching?
I was watching him perform with this. He would have practiced with his first bands back then, and I would like sneak into the rehearsal room and watch. And then a few years later, I think I was around 11 or 12. He signed up to go to university, which means that he left the house during the weeks. He would come home at weekends, and during those weeks, that's when I learned how to play drums, basically. So he would come home and just find me improving drastically every week. So yeah, but definitely just seeing him playing made a huge impression in the beginning.
One of my school friends, he has a brother as well. He is like 4 years older than him, and he was pretty much the same. Mm. They had a huge basement, and 2 drum kits there. And it was the first time that I listened to somebody play the drums. Mm. And it was the best thing ever on this planet in that very moment. I was like, I want this.
Yeah.
And from that moment on, I tried every minute to play in the school. We had a shitty drum kit, like everything was falling apart every free minute.
Yeah.
So yeah, when that kicks in, that passion, you just want to go that road no matter what. And
I know exactly what you mean.
On the drum set, finding your own personality is a really difficult thing because unlike most instruments, you are actually at first overwhelmed by all the choices you have and kind of the choices you have to make. Some things are optional, but if you haven't really started yet, it's definitely challenging. You may already have a taste in the drummers you like and the style that you're comfortable with, but the gear will affect your development on the set immensely. So what have you been confronted with, finding yourself, and what happened to your acrylic kit?
Oh, my acrylic kit. It's still around. It's just sitting in cases. But yeah, not just like the equipment. It's also what you choose to play and what you choose not to play in a song. That also defines your sound and your style as well. But as far as sound, yeah, it's a tricky question because normally we record an album and then you work with a producer and he finds a sound in your drum kit. So I've experimented with like various setups of cymbals and snares especially. And also, it's continuously going on that I exchange or change my setup slightly, Just now it's 12 and 13 toms in the fronts, but it used to be like 10, 12, 13. And I keep it kind of a little bit fluid because I like the challenge of just like changing things up slightly, forcing me to like do new things. And a while ago, I used to put the 13 right in the dead center, right in front of the snare, and have a 10 and a 12, which is very unorthodox, and it just forces you to like move around in weird positions and come up with new interesting things just because of that.
You avoid the usual Slayer.
There's no denying in that, you know. But,
I mean, I love that film.
Yeah.
I still have that setup.
Yeah.
But I love it when I see something completely different that you can't really play that beat, but all of a sudden, hey, wow, what's that?
Yeah, it opens up new ways. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm a fan of doing that. And I saw that little 6-inch thing.
Yeah.
At first I thought it's like a bottle holder because it's so tiny.
That's a beautifully sounding little drum, but it's very hard to hit it. It's so small. Absolutely. Especially if we want to move up there really fast.
And if it's dark or you have like flashing lights.
Yeah. I get quite a few rim shots every now and then.
I believe so.
But the music is loud, so it's possible to like swear and scream. Nobody hears you.
I'm super judgmental with everything I do. And most of the time, I think my own playing sucks. So did you ever had any doubts on yourself? And if yes, how did you overcome those doubts?
I think that's an ongoing thing, you know, that just doesn't go away. Like, we're on a tour right now. It's about 30 shows. And most of those shows have been fine. But every now and then you have a night where you just cannot seem to do anything right, you know. At least that's the way it feels in your head, but to the audience, they probably don't even notice that you're having a rough night, but in your own mind, you're like already thinking about a different career choice, you know. Like, you get off stage and you just want to be alone in a corner and forget about it. But and then the next night you play a show and then it's fine again. So it goes up and down. It just moves with the flow. And in the studio is another monster. Like when you put your drumming under like the microscope, that creates a lot of doubt as well. But I mean, at this point, I've played on a bunch of albums, played drums for many years, and you just have to like realize that if it doesn't sound like shit, it's probably good. You know?
Remember who you
What's your contribution to the songs? Is it structure? Is it arrangement? Is it riffs? And do you decide how the riffs should be interpreted on the drums, or do you perform what you are offered? Or is it everything I just said?
Yeah, it's pretty much like everything. Like we changed the way we create our songs slightly, because we used to be a rehearsing band. Like a lot of bands, I think they moved away from that. And we started just like sitting down with two guitars and just recording ideas, you know. A song can come in many different ways, but the most usual form is like that Michael Amott has an idea of a song that he wants to create, and the form of the song is basically in his head already. But every now and then there's a little gap somewhere, and you know, he needs some inputs. I might have a riff, or we might jam on something that becomes that part, you know. It's been like that on the last few albums, and it's working really well. Like, if we get into a creative flow, we just like record everything that we got on our minds, even if we feel like maybe this is not going to make it to the album. Yeah. Just want to get everything down. In a later stage, you go back and like critically listen to everything and decide if it's good enough. When that is done, when that whole process is done, and we draw the line and say, okay, the songs are done, let's record. From that point on, I tend to like insist that I need some time with my drums alone, you know, for a couple of weeks or maybe a month, just to like play the songs and, you know, get more familiar with them behind the kit as opposed to like playing guitar and like programming drums in the computer. So, and then we move into the studio and the rest is history, as they say.
I filmed Virgil Donati playing with Panzer Ballet. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Panzer Ballet. It's German jazz metal.
Okay, no.
Super complicated,
okay.
Really. They recorded it all together, 3 people, not overdubbing, nothing. And they said that they enjoyed the challenge, but also the musicality that was in the room at that very moment. I'm always a fan of let's do it together in the room. Sometimes magic can happen.
I know.
That doesn't happen at home when you sit there.
Absolutely.
So do you miss already the band rehearsal kind of thing, or are you comfortable with how it is now?
I definitely feel the right word for that would be like kind of nostalgia, I guess. Like I miss those days, just like getting together and jamming, just like you say. But what you don't remember is also that it's like sweaty, there's no air in there, and it's like you destroy your ears. Both like ways, or I would say like any way to create a song is basically okay with me, as long as you get what you want in the end, you know. I remember like rehearsing with mixed feelings because I could never like properly hear myself, or yeah, especially when the whole band is rehearsing together and you have like 2 guitars and a bass and even vocals on top of that, just like. But yeah, like you say, you can feel the energy of the song as it is when you play it, and as opposed to hearing it through studio monitors. It's a little bit different.
I try to mic my rehearsal drum kit and record all the rehearsals we do on multi-track.
Yeah.
So I can hear properly what everybody in the band is doing, and I even have a demo-ish sounding recording of that rehearsal. So that definitely amped up everything. Now it's really fun to rehearse, and it's not as noisy anymore as it used to be in the 90s.
I have to add also that I am that guy too in this band, and that's what led to me being more involved with like the songwriting as well over the years. Rehearsal is fine and everything, but we're kind of spread out in the world. Our lineup is a bit different, like we're multinational. So to get everybody together and just jam, you know, yeah. I mean, you don't want to fly somebody to rehearsal like every other
I mean, if it's
weekend.
Preparing for the tour, then it's a whole different kind of thing.
Then it's different, yeah.
Talking about the show or playing live, what happens with you in between the songs of a show while not playing? Do you open up to the audience, or do you try to be still focused?
Yeah, I good question. I think I try to be open to anything that's going on. First of all, I'm trying to read what all the band members are doing. If somebody's having an issue with something, so I don't want to start the next song like on top of somebody's tuning problems, you know. And also, it's just like breathing a little bit. It's just like catching my breath and getting ready for the next song, having a sip of water.
Breathing is important because, I mean, it looks easy when you do it.
Yeah.
You're playing. But of course it isn't.
Those nights when you like really get into the flow, like when you're just like one with the drumming and one with the song, then your mind can wander and you can like start thinking about something completely different. But it's fine because you're in the zone and it's like, it's just flowing out of you. The nights when it's different and you feel like you're fucking up or you're making a lot of mistakes, it's almost like, I told somebody else about this, like if you're playing any sport, like for example, tennis. If you're playing a tennis match which I did when I was a kid. If you start fucking up in the beginning, it's very important that you get over it. Otherwise, you're going to beat yourself up, and your game is going to like continuously go like that. It's the same with a show, you know. If you don't get over it, you might just end up in that negative space and keep fucking up. Easier said than done, though.
I think you've met quite a few drummers in your life, right? So how does someone's musical voice differ or not from the personal expression on the drum kit? Behavior and drumming. So what did you experience like?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Like, I find that a lot of drummers, especially, we're so used to being in the background. We're like behind everybody else, and we're the furthest back in every photo. We're always to the side somewhere. So drummers tend to be nice people. But
sometimes, I mean, the personality of someone also reflects in the playing on the drum kit. And so what is your experience with that? You're watching the guy play, and then you're meeting him right afterwards. And you'll be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I think that happens.
He lost his shoes, of course.
Yeah, no, but that makes sense too. If your personality, as you are as a person, basically like comes through or shines through in the way you drum, I think that's a good thing. That's natural. Anything else other than that would be like fake, right? Kind of. It depends on the style, but most of the times I think that's true.
When I see you on stage, you hit me like more as a very expressive person, and now you're super calm all the time. I mean, I knew it already that you're the way you behave in the room.
There's also the thing that, you know, getting very good at an instrument, technically, in the end, your goal is basically to express something, a feeling. In many cases, it's things that you might not be able to express in any other way, like verbally or through your personality. So I think that's very interesting too. I definitely feel confident enough in my technique, in my playing to, I feel like I'm expressing myself through the drumming, you know? Yeah.
How do you get out what's in your head, in your heart, and your limbs, and how to make the stuff everybody does your own? That's referring to what we had before when we talked about the very basic grooves you have to play.
Yeah.
So that juice, the great drummers before you already did so perfectly. Those drummers you're a fan of, they did all that stuff. That is the reason why you sit behind the drums. But still, how do you pull the trick to put out something that hasn't been there already, or that sounds like you?
I think that defines my playing style. That's what I'm trying to do, basically. I want to exist somewhere in the very traditional and throwing in, like, every now and then something that's more unique, you know, something that I come up with. And I think a lot about, like, the little spices that I throw in just to make it interesting. That is a challenge, you know. That's a challenge for anyone. You know, sometimes the song doesn't even require that you throw in something spicy. It just requires a steady beat, and that's it, you know. And then you have to, like, accept that. And that's part of, like, your personal or evolving as a drummer as well, to realize that sometimes your extravaganza is not really needed, you know. So
this is actually where you measured playing those simple things. And yeah, I'm getting there because now I have this band that requires exactly that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really tricky.
Every band is different, you know, and every song is different too. Like, it's all about your approach to drumming and how you hear the song. That's the key. That's the biggest part. If you hear yourself going crazy, then you got to record that, you know.
Yeah, recording yourself is super important. What I learned was from Simon Phillips. Actually, he is the reason why I mic'd up I have 2 drum kits and I mic'd them all up because I realized, sometimes you play utter crap, but you don't hear it. So you better listen to what you're actually doing, because that's the thing that matters, right? So
Yeah, I remember starting to record or hearing myself in a recording. That's a huge tool for like getting better. It really puts things into perspective.
And you learn about tones and maybe what not to play when the other guys are playing this. Sometimes there is a riff and you don't really listen before and play the floor tom because I really like that here. It's totally wrong in that situation. So this was crucial for me to get actually a little better.
I wanted to add to like the way you hear the songs. Like if you're playing with a guitar player and he presents a riff to you, the way you hear that riff and the accents you choose to like pronounce a little bit more in that riff, that's part of your DNA. That's your personality as a drummer, and that's something I think a lot about. Like I want that to be perfect. You know, how I follow the riff. That's like A and B.
Sometimes I even hear stuff in the riff that is not really there.
Yeah.
But it elevates it again. So maybe it was missing, and now you did it.
There's many ways to see that. Yeah, I hear it.
So I only have one question left. So what was the funniest thing on the road?
I love that question. That's a good one.
Yeah. No, we're done.
We're done? Okay.
I'm thinking we have 45 minutes now, and I don't want to ruin your timetable. You need time to...
We've been talking for 45 minutes.
Yeah. Didn't feel that bad, huh? Or that long?
Didn't feel that long.
Yeah. Bad is another issue.
No.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And
it's very wide. Your questions are very like wide and can go in different ways. It's like, I like that.
Remember who you are!
Thank you for watching that interview. I enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed it too. Stay metal.